This is Lord of Limbo. Tonight's story isn't fiction. It's not just a creepy tale someone made up. It's something that really happened. And once you hear it, you might start watching your windows a little more closely. Story 1. My name is Sandy. I've never been a romantic. Not in the conventional sense, anyway. Valentine's Day was always just another date on the calendar. When I was in a relationship, I'd play along out of courtesy. When I wasn't, it barely registered. But something about last year, something made me pay attention. Maybe it was the silence. The kind that feels too loud when you're alone in a small apartment and you realize nobody's texting you, nobody's planning a surprise. I wasn't sad, just still. Too still. It was February 14th. A Wednesday. I remember because I worked late that day, came home exhausted, dropped my keys in the bowl by the door, and kicked off my boots. The hallway light flickered when I turned it on. I noticed because it never does that. I stood there for a second, watching it, before it stabilized. There was something on my kitchen table. At first I thought maybe I'd left it there in the morning. A small box, neatly wrapped in red paper, with a black ribbon tied carefully around it. No note. No name. Just sitting there, centered on the table like it was waiting for me. I live alone. No one has a spare key. The building has cameras at the entrances and a locked lobby door that needs a key card to get past. So how the hell did a gift end up inside my apartment? My first thought was that maybe I was being paranoid. That I bought it for someone and forgot. Or maybe it was delivered and my neighbor, Sarah, put it inside for me. We're close, and I've given her my key before when I was out of town. But I hadn't spoken to her in over a week. And even then, why would she go into my place without saying anything? I didn't touch the box that night. I just sat on my couch, watching TV, pretending not to look at it. But every few minutes, my eyes would drift to the table. Something about the way it was placed, perfectly square, almost like a stage prop. Like it was meant to be noticed. At some point I went to bed, still ignoring it. I left the hallway light on. I don't usually do that. Around 3:17 a.m., I checked the clock. I woke up to a thud. Not loud. Just a quick, single knock sound from somewhere in the apartment. Not the door. It sounded closer. Like it came from the kitchen. I froze in bed. I live on the 3rd floor. No fire escape. No open windows. And I lock everything obsessively. Still, I stayed in bed for another 10 minutes, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No creaking floorboards. No voices. Just the low hum of my refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. Eventually, I got up. Walked slowly into the hallway. The box was still on the table. But the ribbon was untied. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything move. But it was unmistakable. The ribbon, which had been perfectly tied in a bow, was now loose, draped on either side of the box like someone had just opened it. And I swear, the paper had a tiny tear in the corner. Like it had been peeled slightly. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I made tea and sat in my kitchen, watching that box. Not opening it. Just watching. Like if I took my eyes off it, something would change again. The next morning, I went to Sarah's apartment. She looked surprised to see me. I asked if she had dropped off a gift in my apartment. She blinked at me, shook her head, and said, "Why would I do that?" I believed her. Her confusion was too real. I went to the building manager, asked if anyone accessed my apartment while I was out. He checked the logs. No unusual activity. The front door cameras didn't show anyone entering with a package or tampering with anything. It was like the box appeared on its own. I finally opened it that night. Inside was a small heart-shaped locket. Cheap looking, like something you'd get from a gas station or a claw machine. But it was old. Tarnished. Scratched. I held it up to the light. There was a tiny clasp, and I popped it open. Inside, where you'd usually see a picture, there was a piece of paper. Folded multiple times, tiny. I unfolded it carefully. It was yellowed, like it had aged decades. There were 2 words, written in faded ink. Found you. That's all. My chest tightened in a way I can't explain. Not fear, something deeper. Like being watched from behind a wall you can't see. I threw the locket away. I almost threw the whole box in the dumpster, but something made me keep the wrapping. I don't know why. Maybe to prove to myself it was real. I tucked it in the back of a drawer and told myself to forget it. But over the next few weeks, I started noticing things. Keys that weren't where I left them. Lights that were off when I swore I'd turned them on. The hallway light flickering again, only when I walked under it. The worst was the mirror. One morning, there was a fingerprint on it. Small. Like a child's. But too high up. I live alone. I don't have guests. And I definitely don't know any kids. Nothing ever escalated. There were no shadows, no screams in the night. But that's the thing. It's worse when it's small. When it's quiet. When you can't prove anything, but you know. You know something is wrong. Valentine's Day came and went this year. I spent it at a friend's place out of town, just in case. Nothing strange happened. No boxes. No notes. But 2 nights ago, I came home from work. There was a red ribbon on my pillow. No box this time. Just the ribbon. Tied in a perfect little bow. Story 2. My name is Jessica. This happened 2 years ago, on Valentine's Day. I was living alone at the time in a small duplex apartment. Cozy, affordable, and in what I thought was a safe area. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship a few months before, so I wasn't really in the mood to celebrate anything romantic. I worked that day like any other. I remember it was unusually warm for February, and the snow outside had started melting, leaving the sidewalks wet and slushy. I came home around 6 p.m., a little tired, wanting nothing more than to put on pajamas, eat takeout, and forget the date entirely. When I got to my front door, I noticed a bouquet of flowers sitting on the ground. Red roses. Wrapped in simple cellophane, no fancy decorations, just there. At first I smiled, assuming maybe it was a gesture from a friend or a neighbor trying to cheer me up. I picked them up, brought them inside, and set them on my kitchen counter. There was a note tucked inside the stems. It wasn't handwritten. Just a small white card with typed text. To Jessica. You looked beautiful last Thursday. My smile faded immediately. Last Thursday? I tried to think, what did I do that day? I'd gone grocery shopping after work. Nothing special. Wore a hoodie, barely any makeup. Definitely not dressed to be noticed. But something about the message felt specific. Intentional. The fact that it was typed, not written, made it feel more calculated. I checked the outer wrapping again. No florist name, no branding. No delivery slip. Nothing to indicate where the flowers had come from. I called a couple of friends, asked if they'd sent anything. No one had. By the time I sat down for dinner, I was already feeling on edge. I kept thinking about that line, you looked beautiful last Thursday, and wondering who had been watching me, and from where. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the apartment made me flinch. At one point, around 2 a.m., I got up to check all the windows and doors, just to make sure they were locked. Everything was secure. The next morning, I threw the flowers out. I told myself maybe it was just some awkward admirer from the store or the neighborhood. Weird, but harmless. A week went by. Then, one night, I don't remember the exact day, but it was a Friday, I woke up to the sound of my doorknob turning. Not forcefully. Slowly. Deliberately. Like someone was testing it. I live in a duplex, remember. There's a small porch out front, barely any cover. For someone to stand at my door, they'd be completely visible from the street. But when I got up, heart pounding, and peeked through the peephole, no one was there. I waited. Silent. Listening. My hallway light was off, and I remember the glow from a distant street lamp was just barely enough to make out shapes in my living room. Then I heard a sound that chilled me. A quiet tap. Not at the front door. At the back window. That window is in my kitchen. It faces a narrow alley between my building and the neighbor's fence. No reason for anyone to be there. No path. No light. Nothing. The tap came again. Light. Fingertip light. I didn't go near it. I just backed away, grabbed my phone, and called the police. I whispered as I spoke, afraid to make any noise. By the time they arrived, less than 10 minutes later, whoever had been there was gone. They checked the yard, the alley, even the street. No footprints in the snow, which had lightly returned that evening. Nothing. The officer told me to keep my doors locked and stay vigilant. That was it. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, when I opened my front door to grab the newspaper, I still get it delivered out of habit, I saw another bouquet of flowers on the step. Same red roses. Same cellophane. No note this time. But this time, I didn't bring them inside. I took photos and sent them to the police. They started a case. Nothing concrete. Just a report on file and an extra patrol near my street at night. I bought a new deadbolt, added a security bar to the back door, and installed a motion light above the alley-facing window. Weeks went by. No more flowers. No noises. No attempts to get in. And then one night, I remember it so clearly, I was in bed reading, and my phone buzzed. It was a photo. From an unknown number. It was my backyard. Taken from somewhere low, maybe behind the fence. You could see the back of my apartment, the light on in my bedroom window. Me, silhouetted behind the curtains. I froze. The caption just said, "Beautiful again." I showed the police. They traced the number, it was a burner. Disposable. Untraceable. Nothing they could do. I started staying at my sister's place after that. Changed my number. Eventually moved out of that apartment. But here's the part that still keeps me up. A month after I moved, my old landlord called. He said the new tenant, another young woman, had found something under the porch. A small, rusted tin box. Inside were scraps of paper, folded notes, torn up photos. Of me. Some taken from a distance. Some through windows. One was even from inside the apartment, showing me asleep on the couch. The police never figured out how he got in. They never found out who he was. I don't know where he is now. But every Valentine's Day, I still check my doorstep first thing in the morning. Just in case the flowers come back. Story 3. My name is Damien. I'm not the most social person. Never have been. I'm not antisocial, but I've never been the type to share a lot online or hang out with a big circle of friends. That's probably why this whole thing shook me so hard. It forced me to realize how much of my life I thought was private, but maybe never really was. This happened on Valentine's Day, 2021. I was home that evening, alone. I remember that clearly because I'd planned to have a quiet night playing games and ignoring the world. I wasn't dating anyone, hadn't been for over a year, and honestly wasn't in the mood for reminders. It was around 9 p.m. when I got a notification on Facebook. A friend request. I almost didn't check it. I assumed it was spam or a bot, since I rarely added people I didn't know. But something about the profile caught my eye. The name was Alina, and the photo was of a woman I didn't recognize, but she looked real. Not overly edited or fake like most spam accounts. She had a soft smile, dark hair, and eyes that somehow felt intense. Like she was really looking at me. I clicked her profile. There wasn't much on it, only a few photos. Most of them were selfies. A couple of sunsets. No mutual friends. No posts. Something about it felt new, like the account had just been made. Still, I accepted it, mostly out of curiosity. Not even a minute later, she messaged me. Alina, happy Valentine's Day, Damien. I blinked. My first thought was, how did she know today mattered to me at all? I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't even been active on Facebook all day. I replied. Me, thanks. Do I know you? She responded almost instantly. Alina, no. But I know you. That made my stomach drop a little. I stared at the screen. Thinking. Was this someone from high school? College? Some prank? Me, have we met before? Alina, not in person. I was starting to get uncomfortable. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but something about her tone was wrong. Like she was playing with me. Then she said, Alina, I love your hoodie. The dark green one. Looks soft. That's when I froze. Because I was wearing a dark green hoodie. But I wasn't using my webcam. I wasn't on a call. I wasn't live streaming. Nothing. I looked down at myself just to be sure, as if I could have forgotten what I was wearing. Then I stared around my room, suddenly hyper-aware of the windows. The blinds were halfway closed, but there were gaps. I got up and shut them completely. I typed. Me, how do you know what I'm wearing? She didn't answer right away. For the first time since the conversation started, she left me on scene for a few seconds. Then came the reply. Alina, because you're my boyfriend tonight. I didn't know what to say. My skin was cold. That one sentence had more weight than anything else she'd said. Me, what the hell does that mean? No response. I waited. I typed again. Me, are you watching me? Who are you really? Still nothing. I clicked her profile. Gone. The account no longer existed. Deleted. Like it had never been there. The message thread vanished too. I swear to this day, I didn't imagine it. I have no screenshots, and I regret not taking one when I had the chance. But I remember every line of that conversation. Her face. The feeling I had when I realized she could see me, wherever she was. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the house made me jump. I searched for hidden cameras, checked my webcam, covered it with tape, shut every curtain, unplugged every smart device. I even checked the Facebook data logs. There was no trace of the account. Nothing. I've never heard from Alina again. Never saw that face. Never got another message. But something about that last sentence still lingers in the back of my mind. Because you're my boyfriend tonight. Why only that night? Why Valentine's? And how did she see me? I still have no idea what happened. Maybe it was someone playing a twisted joke. Maybe it was worse. But every Valentine's Day since then, I can't help but feel like someone's watching again. Just silently choosing. Some things can't be explained. Some things leave behind more questions than answers. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the unknown is always closer than you think. This is Lord of Limbo. Until next time. Keep your doors locked, and never ignore the feeling that something's watching you.